PodcastOne presents the Steve Austin Show Classics.
Last week, y'all heard part one, and this week you're going to hear part two of my conversation with Lord William Regal, and he's going to lay it down. I got a lot of feedback on my Twitter account, Steve Austin BSR, about his stories here on the air, so I have no doubt you will enjoy part two, and you're going to hear it right after I take care of my sponsors. I know you guys been hearing me talk about all these amazing supplements I've been taking, but here's the deal. If you haven't already, you need to get your ass and go get some for yourself at onnit.com/Steve. Because when you go to onnit.com/Steve, you not only get the best supplements on planet Earth, you get 10% off. And you think you're smart now? Well, you try some Alpha Brain. You'll be downright dangerous. And if you think your body's already a physical specimen, well, imagine what it'll be if you start working out with Shroom Tech Sport or lifting them kettlebells. But I don't care what anybody says. Once you're over 25 years of age, you need to boost your body's testosterone. So go to onnit.com/Steve and put some T Plus in your cart. This stuff will make you feel like a teenager again. You're going to have more energy and motivation that you're going to know what to do with. Get 10% off one of the safest, healthiest, and most effective ways to help the body boost testosterone ever created right now by going to onnit.com/Steve. And if it don't happen like that, you can get all your money back, no questions asked. So go to onnit.com/Steve. That's onnit.com/Steve. Get your 10% discount off all supplements, and they have a 90-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Go to onnit.com/Steve to get 10% off your order. Lord William Regal. I call him Steve Regal. What do you like to be called?
I don't care.
All right.
Steve's fine.
Bollocks?
Bollocks is good, yeah.
Lover?
Yeah. Well, whatever. I don't care.
Well, you talking about an auspicious beginning to this podcast. I was listening to George Strait. I turned him off because I didn't figure you was a big George guy. Am I wrong? Are you the biggest George Strait fan in the world?
No, there's not too many cowboys walking around Blackpool. Plenty of bandits, but no cowboys.
Yeah, there's a couple of times when you and me were traveling together in Florida back when we was doing the TV tapings down in WCW, and I could have sworn I was pretty drunk back then and doing a lot of things. Were you not walking around the room one day in a pair of Speedos and cowboy boots? Was that not you?
No, that wasn't me, no. No, it's... I used to force me to listen to that stuff. And I grew up listening to, my dad always listened to like Slim Whitman and Marty Robbins and stuff, so I get all that stuff.
Yeah.
When I came to America, it was right at the time of that new country, what they called new country.
Too poppy.
Yeah, and it wasn't me, you know, and it all sounds, you know when they say it all sounds the same, it all does, I don't know who's good and who's bad, but I liked all the old stuff we used to listen to, and because, like I say, I grew up with it. But I don't listen to it much.
I'm going to take you back to your days growing up in Blackpool with Marty Robbins. Out in the West Texas town of El Paso, I fell in love with a Mexican girl. Nighttime would find me in Rose's Cantina. Music would play and Felina would whirl. Yeah. God, you actually remember that. You wasn't both. No, this is my clean show. You weren't kidding me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are you listening to now, dude? Because, I mean, you and me are old school.
Yes.
But it's 2014, and I met you back in around, 92, 93 when you came over?
93, January 93.
January 93. But what are you listening to right now? Going down the road, man.
Right. This is me. I started off listening to all kinds of music when I was younger. It was great being in England because, well, the thing is, the charts over there weren't specific charts. Whatever was selling was the top 40, and so you'd have metal songs, you'd have soul records, you'd have reggae songs, all punk records, all in the top 20s, you know.
Right.
So I had a big appreciation for music. When I was in my early years, and then in early teens, I started getting into the metal thing, the British heavy metal.
Did you ever get into the punk thing?
Well, I was like 10 when that all happened, you know. So I listened to, I did. But I've listened to it more since I've got older. And there was like punk records in the charts. The Sex Pistols used to be in the charts in England playing on, weren't on top of the pops, but you'd hear them, and they had to play them. So that kind of stuff. And then I went through all kinds of different music, but I got, I liked a lot of the ska, the revival ska that came out, the Beat and the Selector and Specials and all that kind of stuff. And then I got into the British metal stuff, which was, Motorhead, Saxon, Priest,
Saxon.
Yeah, Angel Witch,
Right.
Tigers of Pantang, all that kind of stuff. And I was big into that for a bit. And then it was right at the time I was starting wrestling, about 83. It seemed like all these hair bands from LA were coming on the scene. I used to get that Kerrang magazine.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to the point, if I saw one more back-combed hair and tongue sticking out doing I was going to throw up. And I just quit listening to all. I kept listening to the original stuff that I got, but I sort of stopped listening to rock music at that time, and I'd still listen to the Maiden and all that stuff, but it just went away. And I moved to Blackpool then, so that scene there was all. I was going out to nightclubs all the time. I was 16, but I was out in nightclubs every night after playing at being a wrestler.
Is the legal drinking age in England 18. Still 16?
No,
it's 18.
It was 18.
Okay.
But, I was always a bit taller than the average, but nobody ever questioned me. I just used to. So I'd be out doing my bit of wrestling all around Blackpool, and I'd be in clubs. So I got into a lot of, not bad club music, but good. I used to go to some good club dance music and stuff. And then I got into what's called Northern Soul, which is, it's a big scene in England, still is. It's all 60s and early 70s American, very rare soul music, really rare. Nobody even knows about it over here, and it's all these artists from over in Detroit and Chicago that made all these great sounds, and nobody ever listened to them. They were like, because Motown was such a big deal, unless they used to have meetings once a week, and unless something was going to be, they thought was going to be number one, they didn't even put it out. So there was like all these collectors that find all these rare Motown and all these other different soul albums, and they were like great music, and they had a bit of a raw quality to them because they weren't polished records. And I got into a lot of that, and so mostly nowadays that's what I listen to, is all these rare soul records. But I go through spells. I'll go back onto I've just been on a spell of Saxon and Maiden for a while, and then and then I find like these odd bits of old, like Trojan was a reggae label in England, and I go through spells of that, and it's just never ending.
Yeah, but when you were out there cruising the clubs and you got into the dance scene type music, I mean, I've known you for a long time. I have a hard time seeing you out there grooving on a dance floor. Did you have some moves?
Oh, I'm a mover, yeah. I remember I was around all the original rave stuff, Yeah. Because that was 88. That's when it was all coming into the clubs in Blackpool and stuff. So
what do you do at a rave gimmick? I've never been to one. You just mosh around or what?
Dance, yeah.
Going mental?
Yeah.
And you take out all your frustrations or energy?
No, I don't have any frustrations. I'm pretty,
hey, the thing about you brought up Saxon a while ago, one of my favorite bands of all time.
Yes.
And it's just great guitars, great sound. Of course, Biff, the lead singer, has a great voice and does it so easy. But for me, like Saxon, and like you can name almost any top band right now, and they'll say Saxon was a huge influence on them, and they look up to those guys. But they never really hit the big time.
No.
And so it's the same thing. So many times you can have a guy who's an impeccable technician in the ring, but can't quite get the big time.
I tell people this all the time, right? In our business, people live in the wrestling bubble, and I've always tried to stay on the outside. And I'm the only carny fella around. I'm the only carny fella left in this business. I've never acted like one, if you know what I mean. Like, I've always tried to look at it from a different point of view, and that's silly. It's not about how, we talk about good workers and that. It's got nothing to do with it. It's making a connection with the audience.
Right.
That's what good working is, really. Yeah. So, like, you can have the best acts in the world, and that's all we are. As wrestlers, you get up your own backside about what we are. We're an act.
Right.
And you either make a connection with your audience. Some of the best acts in the world can't sell out. I mean, not act, but
talent.
They can't sell out a club, a singer, right? And yet you get some of the worst music you've ever heard will sell out every arena in the country. So it's making a connection, and Saxon, for whatever reason, just didn't really make that. And like, I was talking to Chris Jericho, he was going to go on tour with him. He said, they've offered me this tour now, you've got to take it. That was my first word. It's Saxon. And I said, don't worry about the money. Is it Saxon you've got to go on? And he said, yeah, you're right. That was our only conversation. He said, yeah, you're right. You've got to go on it. It's Saxon. So they did well on that last tour, right? I think.
Where all did they go? I mean, because every time I talk to Chris, like he's going on tour, but it's always over in Europe. Did they ever tour in the States?
Yes, Saxon were on tour in the States, and he went on tour with them.
So I got to see them. Before, they're not getting any younger, and I'm not either. But one of these days, I got to go see those cats. But
I saw them a couple of times. I saw them at
how were they live?
Incredible.
Yeah.
I saw them at the 81, I think it was 81 Monsters of Rock at Donington, which was AC/DC, Saxon, Whitesnake, Slade, Crocus, I believe. Oh, Blackfoot, which I'd never heard of Blackfoot, nor had anybody else. There's 80,000 people.
Now, is this a Blackfoot with Train?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, nobody had ever heard of Blackfoot,
Yeah.
right? So they're like the first band on. Everybody's like, who are these fellas? Within 10 minutes, they had the place sold on them. They were just rock, because you just never heard that.
Yeah.
Nobody in England had heard of that southern rock music.
Right.
And they were as
They were
good
laying
as
it down
got.
pretty
They
good.
were great. And I just remember I was 13 or 14. And I'm just looking at this band with all the, looked exotic to me because they were in this just jeans and cowboy hats and stuff that you didn't really see. I was used to the denim and leather, you know. And it was just a weird look, and they played good, you know.
But you live in Atlanta now,
Yeah.
or right outside of Atlanta,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of musical acts that go through there. You a guy that seeks out concerts?
I go to a few. I went to see Maiden last year.
How was that?
Incredible.
Do you like to sit in a crowd, or can you get like a backstage deal, or like
I did
you
get
like
a
to be amongst
backstage
it?
deal,
Yeah.
but I don't. It's not.
I'm not a crowd scene. I so many people that I want to see. Zach Wilde is a good friend of mine. So a lot of times, back in the day when I go to Ozfest, I'd sit, stage left.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in a crowd just because I just don't like a lot of crowds.
I go out in the crowd. Don't bother me.
Yeah.
Like I always did when I was a kid. I was real lucky when I was a kid because growing up where I grew up in Staffordshire in the middle part of England. Well, the closest arenas, buildings to me were Wolverhampton Civic Hall. That was my local wrestling hall as well.
Right.
Which I went to.
How many seat?
2,000.
Okay.
But every single band went through there. I saw everybody there from, Saxon, Rainbow, Michael Schenker Group. It was just non-stop bands when I was a kid there. Or you could go like 20 miles and go to Birmingham Odeon, which was a famous rock venue where I saw Ozzy and, Sammy Hagar when he was on This Planet's on Fire tour, and all these kind of just non-stop bands for a while that I was going to that kind of stuff. And now, I went to see the Pet Shop Boys in Atlanta the other week.
Really?
A few months ago.
West End Girls?
Unbelievable.
Well, that's the band, right?
Yeah, but because you're not...
That's a great song.
But in England, they're a big deal.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
They've had 25 years of non-stop hits.
Yeah.
And they were a great show, and stuff. So I still go out and find the right bands and, whoever's coming through. But my son goes to a lot. My eldest son, he's into the death metal and all that kind of stuff. So he's off all.
And he's playing, right? He's playing guitar.
He plays a bit of guitar.
How's that come along?
He goes on and off with it,
You ever pick up a guitar and try to play?
I can play a few chords and that when I was a kid, and I can still strum a few things, but I'm not.
Don't do anything for you.
I've got these dodgy little hands, they're like suspect little. I have. If I had hands like
those
yours,
are guitar player hands.
Yeah,
they're kind of nimble. You get on the strings and on the fret.
I'd make a good cobbler or something,
Cobbler.
If I had hands like yours, I'd rule the world.
These are hands of a strangler.
Little knitting hands I've got. Yeah.
You're listening to another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show, only on PodcastOne.
Hey, I've been opening my laptop computer here to try to find an email. One of the fans sent in a bunch of old wrestling cards from England. I love looking at old wrestling cards. And, two of the guys, Haystacks and Big Daddy. Now, you got premier technicians over there, but these guys were big stars. What was it about Haystacks and Big Daddy? Big Daddy, come on, man.
Right. Well,
people loved him.
You can't imagine what a superstar he was. And when I say a national treasure,
I get it.
Because to the working classes, this was somebody that could be their uncle or their dad or a fella sat in the pub that they could all associate with, and he had that John Bull kind of a character, which is that old English.
Probably very charismatic.
Very charismatic, and just had that something. And like we say, it's got nothing to do with.
Right.
It's a bonus if you're good in the ring.
Yeah.
It's having that connection. It's having that magic or that something that some people just have. And his brother Max Crabtree was the promoter of Del Martin's. He was a brilliant promoter. Max Crabtree was
You've talked about that. We talked the last time we talked.
he knew how to promote wrestling,
Right.
and he knew how to promote, and he had this idea, we're going to make you into this, and you know, and Shirley, like Big Daddy, his real name was Shirley, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, from the part of England that he was from, when he was a kid, it was one of those names like Leslie that was
right.
just a, you know, it was just in that area, but
yeah.
He was called Shirley. Right? He was already retired, you know. He was 45 when he got the call to come back again, and he put a load of weight on and all.
Well, was he Big Daddy before?
No, he had all kinds of gimmicks.
Right.
He was in the Coldstream Guards for us, so he was the battling guardsman, and he was, believe it or not, you ever look at old pictures of him from when he was in his 20s, he looked incredible. He was in the Guinness Book of Records for having the biggest ratio difference from chest to waist. You see pictures of him. He used to be a lifeguard on Blackpool Beach.
Right.
Looked incredible, the blonde Adonis they used to bill him as. And he wasn't, and you know, I've got nothing bad to say about him. He wasn't a good wrestler in any shape.
Well, yeah.
Even when he was young and fit, he wasn't. But he was a big, strong, powerful fella.
Yeah.
Very fit. And even when he was big and heavy as Big Daddy, he used to go jogging every day, and he was always about talking about conditioning and stuff. He was weird. It's dead funny, but he was always, you know, he ate loads of food to get heavy. And it was just one of those things that took off. It took off. And
whose idea was it to just call this guy up, or Max to call his brother up and say, we're going to call you Big Daddy?
It was from that play, is it Cat on a Hot Tin Roof? Is it,
I don't know.
I believe it's, is it?
I mean, there's a play called Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
I believe there's a character in that's called Big Daddy. I could be, but there's a character out of a play that resembled a big heavy fella. It was like a Southern gentleman, I believe. That was
right.
I've never read it, but it's something to do with that. And he had the concept in his mind of what he thought that was, and call him Big Daddy. And you know, you never saw a picture of Daddy without. He used to wear the Union Jack stuff on and the top hats, and he'd always have like a newborn baby holding and stuff. And they used to put it on the posters, Mom's and Dad's, you know, Big Daddy, Mom's and Dad's favourites, kids, you know, send him round all the kids' school, the hospitals and all that. And it was just very smart, right?
Yeah.
And people took to him because he was an attraction. You didn't see, and like, I'm a big fella in England. I was. I'm not anymore. Like, there seems to be a generation of these big fellas growing up. But like, me and Dave Taylor were the two giant people in England. I was 6'3" and you know, 18 stone or something. That was a big man. Well, he's a super heavyweight. You know, it's a huge man, and you know, it's like over here in the days, it wasn't a body thing. It was like these big, heavy fellas are big, powerful fellas. That was.
But how does that translate in the ring? Well, you know, once those guys got in the ring, I mean, you got the premier technicians doing all this great stuff, and all of a sudden, you know, the heavyweight guys go. And maybe, you know, I'm going back to the Japan days when I used to go to Japan, and all of a sudden, you know, you get Justin Liger in there with somebody that are doing all this stuff. You think, man, how do I follow that? Well, you just go do your stuff because you can't do that. But I mean, did the crowd? Obviously, they're very educated because they know great wrestling.
Yes. Well, it was the spectacle to start with. It was an attraction. It was something you wouldn't see, and it was crash bang wallop.
Right.
It wasn't anything in rounds. It was 2 and 3 minutes of belly butts and a splash, and we're not used to seeing this. And you get all hyped up with it, and the music. You know, he's one of the few wrestlers that had music and coming out, and then having every place you went to, you'd have the local kids band playing him into the ring, all marching band and everything.
Yeah.
It was
big production.
It was a big production and a spectacle, and you know, you got carried away with it. You know, it was just, and he'd get in and two belly. You know, and it was always his opponents were monsters.
Yeah.
So it was just an incredible morality play in front of you, right? You just saw this, whoa, and he's out there smiling and waving, and everybody, and then two belly butts, a big splash, and that was it. Well, then you've got A-Stacks. Well, A-Stacks in his day was an absolute monster. 6'11", you know, 600 pounds.
Right.
Big beard, had that kind of a thing about him, which was very well thought out by Max. He got the stereotypical John Bull Englishman, and you've got this wild, basically an Irishman, this Celtic thing, which was where Haystacks people sort of, they didn't say he was Irish, but there's all that.
Yeah.
That racism brought into it, right? I mean, it's a smart thing of doing. Like, you've got the Irish and the English don't get on and all that, and it's just this, and he's got to beat this big monster, right? It was magic stuff. So there was a lot of that went on. It got to a point, and they sold out Wembley, and it was, and it had its run, and then it died off. Unfortunately, that's when nobody realised. The people running it didn't realise and kept it going too long. It was magic for a while, and it just didn't work after that. But it was. I mean, you couldn't turn on the TV without seeing Daddy on some mainstream TV show when there was only 3 channels.
Right.
He was always on. There's a Saturday morning kids show, very famous when I was a kid, called Tiz Was, which was, I think it was 9 till 12 every Saturday morning. He was never off it, and it was like the most watched kids show, and he was always on it. And it was just there. He had his own comic book. He was a comic strip in one of the famous comics. It was Big Daddy, and it was just.
How long did his run last?
The big run was probably about 4 or 5 years, and then it kept going, and it got to the point at the end. I mean, I started. See, like, I got my break on TV when I was 18 in 1986, and I'd worked. All these different things happened to me, and I finally got to work for Dale Martins for the TV company, but I wasn't ready for it, and I decided by then I wanted to be this other style of wrestler, this heavyweight kind of. I wasn't ready for that because I still was skinny and tall. And
right.
But that's where I wanted my career to go. I'd set a career path for myself. I got put straight away, basically, as Big Daddy's tag partner, because that's what it was, always tags most of the time.
Right.
As he got older, you would go in and you have...
So you were tagging with him?
Yeah, I was tagging with him on TV. You can watch some of
So
them.
you was probably doing all the work, and then he'd come in.
Yeah, you do the selling, and he comes in, makes the comeback. But I was only there for a few months.
Right.
And I just thought, I'm not going to get anywhere. This is me stuck in this now.
Yeah.
And if this was a weird thing at the time, but I happened to be at Blackpool Tower, a circus, which was I lived in Blackpool. I wrestled on a fairground. I wrestled at every little building in Blackpool. But the premier place to wrestle was underneath Blackpool Tower. There's a circus, 100-year-old circus, and Dale Martins used to run on a Sunday night through the summer there, and that was like the place for me. Incredible to go. Well, I was in there one night, and it's like the October of '86. And there's a Scottish wrestler called Frank Cullen was there. And I was talking to him. He said, "How are you doing?" Well, I said, "Well, not really." I said, I want to be one of them fellas like Dave Taylor and Pete Roberts and that travel the world. I said, I'm stuck in this tag. I've only been in it a couple of months, but this is my role now. And, I was like main event stuff, but I'm not going to get any better. All I'm ever going to do now is sell.
Right.
I'm not going to learn. And you can only get all these people were teaching me. Marty Jones had took me under his wing. Was teaching me all this wrestling stuff. You can only get good at it by doing it in the ring in matches, right, and learning how to do it, and whether it works or not in front of an audience, and whether it fails or not. You can't do any of that when all you're doing is selling. I'm not getting any reps in of
right.
That's it. I'm in the wrong role here.
Yeah, it's a great spot for a little bit, but yeah, you can't grow.
Right, you can't grow. Now people would think that it wasn't about ego for me. It's never has been. It's always just about being a pro, right? Because like I say, I come into this with no delusions. I wasn't, so it's always been about having a career. Whether that's right or wrong.
Well, I mean, you got to see the writing on the wall. You just can't sell, during Big Daddy's tag match every single night.
And so I get there, and Frank said, "Well, why don't you call Brian Dixon up? Because he's got loads of good people, and he'll put you on with good people, and then you can, the stuff that you're working on in the gym and the stuff that you've been learning the last few years, you can actually start learning in front of an audience and wrestle and put you in wrestling matches and that. Because you used to have a lot of just straight-up wrestling matches in England. You'd have, everything had its place on the card. And you'd have like 6 5-minute round wrestling matches, which were there to keep people sat there watching. You'd have to watch, but not going anywhere, and usually to put something spectacular after it, bring them down a bit, but they had to be sat focused in on it and that kind of stuff. You say you do a lot of them, or you'll work with all the best villains that he's got, and so I called Brian Dixon up and I went, "I'd like to come and work for you." He said, are you mental? I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, you're on TV with Big Daddy." I said, "Yeah, but I'm not getting any better." I said, He said, "You're 18 and you're on TV."
Yeah.
You know, like this is a promoter talking
Yeah.
me out. I wanted to work for him.
Yeah.
I said, "Look, this is what I want to go." And he went, "Well, I admire that you've got a plan for that." He went, "You come to work for me," he said, "I'll give you all the jobs I can. I'll give you," and he gave me a bit more money. He said, "And I promise you, I'll put you on with better people than you every night. Because that's the only way you get really good at this.
Damn right.
Unless you've got natural talent." And I had mine is all learned. Every bit of everything I've got is learned because I've
on the job training.
I fell on my backside 1,000 times figuring out before anybody saw me really.
Right.
That was the key to it. You know what I mean? Starting so young, and it took me years to get just out from working in Blackpool to working on the and even then I wasn't ready on the nationwide. So went to work for Brian, and from first night, first of all I had to call up Max Crabtree.
Oh, how'd that
18-year-old kid. Excuse me,
Jesus.
Mr. Crabtree. I'm handing my notice in. You know, what? Kid, you're on TV with Ash Shirley. You know, you mean what more could you want? I said, well, that's not the career I want. I want to travel the world and be You're going nowhere, kid. Worst mistake you've ever made. You're going nowhere.
Wow.
Now I don't owe that again, honestly. Because
no. But I mean, that had to be pretty heavy duty news, man.
Right, yeah, because he's not used to anybody talking to him like that, right? Or telling, having an 18-year-old kid telling you that. So he said, "Well, it's up to you, son." He said, "Good luck," because I always okay with me. And it's funny because I went back to work for Max every now and then. Because, like I say, once I started travelling, I could pick and choose, and they used to have to call me then.
Yep.
"Well, we're here during town, can you come work for us?" And when I went back to work for him, when I was like late 19s and 20 and 21, until I came over here, I learned so much from him, because he sort of had a bit of admiration for what I'd done, and I wasn't one of his, if you're stuck working for somebody, they can treat you the way they want.
Right.
When they sort of have, or that you get to a certain standard with things, and people, they realise you're a stand-up fella. And then I started teaching me stuff and learning how to do. Okay. So I called him up. He said, "You're going to go nowhere." So I went to work for Brian, and from day one, I was on with the best people he had. The first match I had for him was a fella called Rocky Moran, who was Fitz' dad had trained. He was Fitz.
Wow.
They grew up together, Rocky and Fit. So he was like another version of Fit. That was my first match, and I wrestled him a lot. And then I was put in a tag with Robbie Brookside. We'd be tagging as the Golden Boys, me and him together. But our opponents were good opponents. And then, or I'd be in singles matches. Within the few months, that was the first time I wrestled Finlay. Because it was a weird time when the TV was sort of in '86. I have to backtrack a bit here with the World of Sport. When they moved it to the 12 o'clock spot, for some reason, Dale Martin's lost the exclusivity of it. Mm-hmm. 1 week it would be Dale Martin's, 1 week it would be Brian Dixon. So when I went to work for Dixon, he still had TV. It was weird. There was never any angles run on TV and everything. It was just
pure wrestling,
just show. Just matches. Yeah, there was no. He never did any promos or anything. It was so 1 week it'd be his show, but I was quitting that part of it to go to work, start from scratch in another company. But he still had TV. I wasn't on it much. I did a few, but not much. But that was my learning spell from 18 to 20. That was when, well, in fact, 18 to 19, that made the world of difference. That year that I worked for him, I was either in the tags with Robbie or I was in,
Well, tell me about the...
Oh, sorry. And because of the change with TV, all the talent were working for everybody, where at one time you had to work for just one or the other.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, Finley's coming work. He's still working for Max, but he's working for Brian Dixon as well on odd days and that. Well, straight away, I'm working with Finley. Like, I'm 18 and I'm working with, and he was the man. He was the man at that time.
I know, that's what I wanted to ask, because he's one of my favorites of all time. So what was your first experience like with Fit Finley in the ring?
I was in Ashton-under-Lyne in Manchester in a theatre, and I'll tell you a bit of a backstory to this. I'm training with, Marty Jones took me under his wing, who was the best in Britain, right? On a Sunday morning, I used to wrestle all week everywhere, and I used to work in nightclubs as well. I used to bounce in nightclubs when I was a kid, just to make some extra money. Mm-hmm. And I used to go over to he had a ring in a stable in Manchester. I used to get over there. I used to finish working in a nightclub at like 3 o'clock in the morning and go home sleep for a couple of hours, drive over to Manchester, and be with him at 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning in his ring. Why he took a liking to me, I don't know, because he don't like many people at all. Mm-hmm. And he took me, it ended up like a second dad to me. He still is. And he was wrestling every single night of the week and would make time to probably getting in at 3 or 4 o'clock himself on a Saturday night, be there at 9 o'clock, teach me all this stuff, right? So I'm at his place one Sunday morning, I'm 17. I'm trained. All of a sudden, I get there and there's more than the usual amount of cars there. There was a couple of wrestlers there, me and a couple of a lad called Kid McCoy and stuff. There's more than the usual cars. I walk in the stable. Max Crabtree's there. This was before I'd worked for him.
Yep.
Max Crabtree's there and Finley's there. And go back and watch Finley if he didn't like people, he would muller them. He would batter the life out of them. You go back. There's one on there with a fella called Black Prince. Did a karate gimmick. He beats him up for 8 rounds. And I mean, just takes liberties with him, smashes him to pieces. He used to do that to a lot. If they weren't up to his standard, he'd just chew them up, right?
Really?
So I'm watching it, because you had to keep your spot there. It was a different day and age. People don't get all that now.
Yeah.
It was hard to get in this job. You had to fight to get in it. You had to fight to stay in it. And it was a tough, man, to stay around. And at the same time, you'll go back and look at certain people. You think, how did they ever get in this job? Because they just. But for the certain group of fellas, it was a. I've watched him batter people up and down. Right, I'd had one other meeting with him before this point at a friend of mine's daughter's wedding, and I'd got introduced to him, and I'd give him the limp handshake.
No, not the old gimmick shake.
I didn't know, because that was the people that I was around at the time, the wrestlers I was around. That was they did, and he crushed me, and he looked at me like I dropped out of a dog's backside, honestly. And so that was, I was like, oh God, I hope he's forgot that, because this was probably a year before, you know. I'm like, oh God. So I get there, and there's these two monsters. There's these two fellas there, obviously daddy fodder, as we used to call them.
Yeah.
Max is driving along the street and seeing these two great big fat fellas with no teeth. And
next attraction.
Just somebody for daddy to bring in and batter, do 2 weeks worth of TV, and that's what he did, right?
Yeah.
And build up to another thing with stacks. There's one fella, great big monster fella. Tattoos, homemade tattoos, no teeth, hair all stuck out. Probably 25 stone, 300 pound or something. And then there's another fella, a little, tubby fella, looked like Mario. Finley has got in the ring. First of all, I'm in the ring, and Finley gets in, and here we go. Whatever happens, I'm used to getting a good hiding anyway, because I used to get my head stuck up my backside regularly, with the wrestlers that knew me, just to teach her how to do this.
Right.
So, he's going to batter me.
But by a senior guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're still a young cat.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you're paying your dues.
Oh, yeah. So I used to have one fella who used to drag me around every day, and smash me up. But I got used to it, right? I'm not frightened of getting a good hiding. That's the only thing. It's not about, I'm not tough.
No.
Talk about being tough or being fighting.
It was a tough business, and you were doing your thing.
I wasn't frightened of getting beaten up.
Right.
Because I've been beaten up, and what's the worst you can do to me? Kill me. I'm not frightened of it. I'm not bothered about getting hurt, right? So Finley gets in. I thought, well, he's going to give me a good hiding, but it's going to be a hell of an experience. And then he went, no, not you. So I went, pointed at these two monster fellas. They climbed in the ring.
They're still at that gathering.
Yeah, this is still in this stable, in this ring. Marty stood watching on the side. Max is got like a clipboard. He's probably drawing a naked woman on it or something, right? He's probably not even looking, but he's just trying to look busy. He proceeds to batter the granny out of these two. And I mean, they're both on the floor screaming, blood coming out of every hole they've got.
Straight up.
Yeah. No, I mean, just crying, literally crying. He's got them, torturing them, dragging them all over, battering them, really doing them in. And I'm just sat, I'm stood watching this going, my God, this fella's a... Them two were never to be seen again. They got in the car and disappeared and never came back. Mm-hmm. Right? So that was the last time I'd seen him.
Back in the day.
So now
you're going to face him in the ring.
Yeah. Ashton on the line. I get in there and I'm like, oh, this is good. And I'm going away, and all of a sudden, he probably won't. And I'm one of them fellas. I'm still a bit. I don't like talking about the inside working of this job.
Right.
I just come from a different time when it was just the way it was, and I think with us talking like that a lot of the times, we make people think it's easy.
No, it's never easy.
No, but you know what I mean? Like people just assume they can talk to you in that kind of language. To me, you have to earn that point. Anyway, but I get in there and I'm just, and about halfway through round one, he just went to me, "Do you not make comebacks, you?" And I went, "Oh yeah," and I just started doing it, and he's flying all over the place.
Yeah.
And I mean, you used to work believe me, you'd come out like you'd run a marathon, you'd dragging and everything. It was hard, but that's the way I wrestle anyway. I mean, I like, I'm physical anyway, so that was, I loved it, and so that was my first thing with him. And then all of a sudden, I'm 18, and I'm wrestling him, I'm wrestling Rocco, and I'm wrestling all the best.
How was Rocco?
It was a white knuckle ride. When I say that you earned your money, it was incredible. But what a machine. I mean, just here's a good story about him. I'm wrestling him somewhere. I'm probably 19. In fact, I know where it was, Oldham in Manchester. And the dressing rooms were on the second floor. You had to come down in an elevator to get to the entrance to go into where the building was, where the ring was. Otherwise, you had to go all the other side of the building and walk through the fans. It wasn't. They wanted you coming out in this certain way. Right. So I go down, I'm in the ring, and I hear his music, TNT, right? That he had AC. I still hear it now, and I get goosebumps, honestly, because I know what's coming, right? This is in my mind. Honestly, I get chills in my stomach because it was like a ride of your life wrestling him. So I'm in the ring waiting for him. Just, you're on edge because you know you're going to be fighting in a minute. Right. And I mean, literally, you are fighting. You watch him wrestle, right? It's just non-stop, bang, and he's like erratic and jumping all over you, 100 mile an hour, right? So I get in the ring, his music's playing, no mark. Music plays again, no mark. Then you can hear, he's stuck in the elevator, stuck in the lift. So they've got to trying to get people to open this. 20 minutes later, the lift opens, out comes Rollerball.
Mad as a hornet?
Mad as like you've come into his house on Christmas Day and pissed on his kids, you know what I mean? Like just going, just comes roaring out of the thing, jumps on me, starts like, and these like all these people, my God, what's happening? You're just fighting him off. But that was what it was like. But you always had an incredible match. He always had an incredible match. But it was, and it was, every other thing was, one in the eye, one in the ear, one in the, whereas Finlay wasn't. Finlay was, it hit you hard, but it was always the right way. And it was very erratic, but brilliant. And Rocco was so groundbreaking, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I was with him his last ever night. I mean, we were sharing a room together. We very rarely ever stayed over anywhere in England because you just drive home every night. But if you were on the very south coast, it was just it's impossible to get home, right? Especially if you had somewhere near there the next day.
You're listening to another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show, only on PodcastOne.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
Lord William Regal, what was your favorite match, or just a list of a couple of matches that are your favorite of all time?
He was doing a double. Him and Finlay were doing a double one night. They were on somewhere first, and then I was just on the one show, the second show. And he came and he was bent over double. This was 91, Rocco? I think. Rocco, bent over double, like with stomach pains. And then he went in again and did a second match with Finlay and come out, and he was in terrible pain. And they took him to the hospital. And he came back to the room about 3 o'clock in the morning. They said he had some kind of infection. Took him home. He went back to Manchester, went to his hospital. They put him on an heart machine, realised his heart was only working at 30% efficiency. And he said he'd been feeling really bad for a long time. So I had the same thing, that congestive heart thing I had when I came back from India. But like, you know, you see him now and he looks fine. But that was the end of that was his very last day of wrestling.
Oh, really?
Because in them days they didn't have the kind of things that they do now, you know.
How old was he?
He was about 41 or 42.
Oh,
maybe.
Yeah.
But like, he you know, I mean, he was just groundbreaking.
The thing I liked about Finlay, you know, comparing to, was Finlay just, and Rocco was incredible, but Finlay has such a mean streak.
Oh, yeah.
A ring general, the way he does things, his execution, it's all designed with a purpose. He's very efficient. and there's no wasted
No
movement.
wasted motion.
And it's just like, I mean, and straight up, great psychology.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and just the subtleties. I mean, you know, sometimes you see a guy and they'll go to cover someone and they'll do the, kind of the cross face, form across the face. And it's just because they saw somebody do it. When Fit did it, he's doing it to punish you, just to maul you a little bit and insult you, rub salt in the wound. And it just looked mean and nasty the way he did it. And it's the way he did it that separated him from anybody else. Because you can go through the motions. You can copy a guy. You can see what they're doing, but it just doesn't transfer. So you show up. Bill Watts is the boss. WCW. You and I meet.
What was all that about with me and you when we used to just stand screaming obscenities at each other? When did that start?
Yeah, and I don't know. I think we both have a very. I love the Monty Python stuff, the Benny Hill stuff. I mean, God dang, who was the guy? The guy that died on stage in England.
Oh, Tommy Cooper.
Tommy Cooper. Yeah. I mean, so I love a lot of the British comedy. For some reason, you and I always hit it off on some level.
Yeah, we did.
And we traveled together for a couple of years. And Jesus Christ, how we both came out of that alive is a whole different story for a whole different day. But when you come in and you're looking at the WCW locker room, I mean, or the work that was being done, because there was some good work there by just a few people.
Right.
By and large, it wasn't so great, or certainly, and I'm not saying to cast any stones because I wasn't a textbook badass worker by any stretch. I was a pretty decent mechanic, but you're coming from very technical wrestling background.
People forget, me and Chris Benoit came at the same time.
Really?
Yes, we came together, same month, right? We get there, Bill Watts has sent all, with the exception of you, Ricky Steamboat and Brian. He sent everybody else that was good home. I don't know if you remember that. There was no Arn, there was no Bobby, they'd all gone home he'd sent them home, he wasn't using them, right? Before I got there was when he'd put Arn out with Eric, had put the SDF on him in a gas station, and so, remember that?
Yeah.
It was all those things. And
the SDF.
So I get there, obviously gravitate towards you and Brian and Ricky, right? Because, these are our kind of people.
Yeah.
But Chris and me were incredibly miffed when we saw the talent.
Right, let down. Kind of surprised that it was that low.
But obviously there was incredible quality. I mean, we were, blown away with you and Brian. And I'd been watching you and Brian on on ITV, on the WCW before I came. I remember watching. There was like a series of matches with Brad Armstrong and a partner, but I knew all about Brad Armstrong.
Yeah.
But we weren't watching the partner. We were watching you three. I was watching you three, going, my God, these fellas can go, And I remember there used to be a sports announcer in England, and he would introduce the matches in between, and he went off on a thing about putting you fellas over once, completely, which wasn't. Yeah, does anybody watch how brilliant these? And he mentioned you three in particular. I've never seen anything. And just like, I was like, wow, that's... Because he's one of them that just does his job, doesn't need to do this, but went off about how much effort and everything and the physicality of what you were doing. So we're there with that. But then there's these other fellas that, there's no other way. I don't mean any disrespect, but I've got to say their names right, because there's like Bagwell and Van Hammer and these... And Mark Marrow and them kind of people, and they're all talking about getting egg whites and finding tanning beds and stuff, right? Yeah. And we're looking and, oh dear, this is, and just wasn't the kind of wrestling that we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Then straight away, when I was brought in, I was told, Bill Watts told me, he said, I don't want you to be a heel or a baby face. I just want you to be, it's my first night TV, I want you to be one of them straight up British wrestlers.
Right.
That does all the... No problem, that's what I do. Okay, go out and do it in 3 minutes. That doesn't work.
Right.
I was dying to death on TV.
Yeah.
Absolutely dying to death, right? Because...
Now, why did they tell you to go out and do it in 3 minutes?
Well, that's all I had, right? That's what you had to go out. This is my first conversation, right? They said, right, go out. Yeah, and in the booking thing, go out and have a 3-minute match. I'd never done anything less than 5 rounds or something. I was like, what? It's 3 minutes and you get, what's your finishing move? I said, what? I said, finishing match? I don't have one. So just get whatever form we need for because I used to do a long match. You just get several different falls, and nobody had a finish. The only person who had a finish in Europe was Finlay. Did the pile driver. That was it. Nobody had a finish. You just did whatever you did.
Yeah.
You had your certain falls that you did and got.
So what happened?
So I go out with the fella and I did a side suplex something, but I'm trying to do wrestling stuff to him. He was a good fella, the fella I was on with, but he didn't know my stuff. So I'm trying to do. Well, I'm moving him into certain positions. I went to go behind him and put him in a cravat, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as my hands had gone round his head, he's took a bump like I'm going to snap my head. Oh! So I'm looking at him on the floor and he's like, oh, and truly felt like, oh, everybody's going to think I'm terrible here.
Right.
The only thing that saved me was straight away, and you were there, I got put on all the house shows. Well, we were on what they called the B crew, right?
Yeah.
I don't even remember what a crew that was, but it was you and Brian against Ricky and Shane. And then it was... Scorpio was on there. Then there was me and Chris, and a lot of times me and Chris were wrestling each other, which we were doing stuff that people were like, oh, and seeing that we could do all this stuff, or whoever you were wrestling, I'd have as long as I needed.
Right.
I could have, me and Dustin wrestled a lot, but it was just you could do 15, 20 minutes. Nobody ever told you to put any time up, so it was just good stuff. And so, luckily, those reports were getting back to the people. Well, this fella can do some stuff, because if you'd have seen me on TV, it was awful.
Yeah.
Awful. And I still hadn't really... I've been practicing talking for years, but I still hadn't found my voice in the talking thing. And Tony Schiavone helped me with that by letting me go down there on my days off and just practice and practice and practice.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Tony Schiavone
did that for me. Yeah, he saved me. He saved me there. He just saw me one day. He said... Come down on the Wednesday. We used to have Wednesday off, and I used to go down to CNN Centre, and he set up a camera for me, and I'd be in there all day long just cutting promos.
Really?
Yeah, and so all of that was coming together. Well, then I had the idea. I said, well, the only way I can do this wrestling stuff is if I'm a villain, right? And I'd never really been that much of a villain.
Right.
I'd been a wrestling villain in certain places, but I'd never been a character villain.
Right.
So, well, if I do that, I can put people in and out of things and make them look good, and then I can... And something like my big hero, two big heroes were Pete Roberts and Cyanide Sid Cooper.
Right.
Cyanide Sid was the best comedic character villain, and at the same time would have you laughing at him and then just wanting to kill him, and just a heat getting incredibly... There's a match you should watch it. Cyanide Sid against Kung Fu, who was another from an Irish guy that trained with Finley's dad. Just one of them kinds that have you laughing and screaming, and so I thought, well, I could do some of his stuff and do the wrestling stuff and mix it all together. And so I got the idea out to Bill Dundee. I said, look, I'd be better off doing this, because this wrestling, I can't wrestle as not being a baby, you know what I mean? You can only do it when you're leading somebody.
Right.
So, and in this country at the time, villains led the match. That was the way it was, right? Which should have been.
Right.
Should have been. And so... It was Dundee did that. Eventually, about 2 months later, Dusty came up to me and said, I've got a great idea for you. We're going to make you Lord Stephen Regal. And I said, thank you very much. And originally it should have been Larry Zbyszko with me. That was Dusty's original idea, so I'm going to put... Because Larry Zbyszko's real name is Whistler.
Right.
And for some reason, Dusty thought that would be... We'd have Lawrence Whistler and Lord Stephen. And then I think Bill was in the office, and he thought, well, this will be a good gig for me. So that's how we started together.
Right.
And so...
You guys were great together.
It was a magic thing, yeah. It was brilliant. I mean, I turned 25 in the May of that year, and, it was just incredible to get started. And straight away, I'm like wrestling, and you'd just gone through it all, but I'm wrestling Steamboat and Arn and Terry Taylor, because all them fellas came back then. So I had all the best of the best to wrestle all the time.
How did you like working with Ricky Steamboat? Because, Steamboat can work with anybody, anywhere, anytime. But, the European style it's different. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's the same, but it's different.
It wasn't with them. It wasn't with any of them fellas because they can
work their ass off.
They just understand the mechanics of. They understand this is all the same. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. If people understand the way the body moves, then you can do anything with anybody. It's just people who don't.
Agreed. But, well, like you brought up Brad Armstrong a while ago, and everybody knows, and Brad Armstrong passed away about a year or so ago, God rest his soul, one of the baddest workers that there ever was.
Yes.
He was a guy, I don't care if he was in Europe, he was in Mexico, he was in Japan, United States.
Well, he did. He came to Germany, and he came to
Yeah, exactly.
But
he was one of those guys. I mean, I don't care what you're doing. He could work his ass off at any style, but not everybody can just get in there with a cat like you and be,
as long as as long as your body just moves around, you can do it. And that's what it was. That was the key to it. Anybody that wasn't just taught in one way and just if you just understood the mechanics of a body, you can do it. If I turn your arm that way, you go that way. If I move your head that way, you go that way. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's easily done, right?
How did you like working with Steamboat?
Just brilliant. Just the best. It was such and because you would certainly put your time in, right? You would go out there, and it was just as long as you wanted to go, and non-stop.
The thing I liked, one of the biggest things I liked about Steamboat was, if you just did something, he had a response for it. When you grab a headlock, he's going to try to top wrist. Or whatever. He's going to do something to counter. Yeah. And you're not talking. You're just working,
and that's the way I always did everything. Yeah. So that was it. Yeah,
yeah. But some people, you got to pay it by numbers. No, not with those guys.
Well, I still, that's not me, and I was never taught that way. Nor were any of them fellas. That was the key to it. None of them people were taught by numbers. None of them. And that was why you look at that. All those fellas they're the ones that went to Japan. They're the ones that went because at one time you got to Japan. You were in separate dressing rooms and all that kind of stuff. So it was just understanding the body mechanics of and understanding the basic ideas of this job. Yeah. And when you can do that, you can go anywhere and wrestle anybody.
And truly being a give and take situation. Because it's going to go back and forth.
Is it what people want to see nowadays? Probably not, to a degree.
I don't know what people want to see right now.
Well, with the right people, it's still the same. You can go out there. It's just it's whatever it is.
I got to ask you this. Yeah. I got to ask you this. We're talking about working and Steamboat, Arn Anderson, those cats and top guys. And like you said, to your point, two guys not to work, you can have a match. You and me went out there, European style. Me, I'm not a classic worker. I'm more of a brawler. Now, we could brawl like a sunbuck, though.
Yeah, we used to brawl, yeah.
We had fun.
Great chemistry as a tag team. Yeah, we
always had fun.
No, but as a tag team, when Brian got hurt, I filled in for Brian.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah, me and you, it seemed to work really well because it was so... Like me doing my thing and you doing your thing, and I
was a little bit more of a technician back then. Mechanic, I would say. I wouldn't call myself
but you were
a
speed guy, you'd do the stuff that I wouldn't like.
Yeah.
And we just fit together perfectly.
It worked out
really good. Yeah.
What about the dang match that happened? We had moved on. I guess I had left to go to WWF at the time, and you were back. And WCW. Anyway, it's the match with Bill Goldberg,
right?
And everybody talks about it was a shoot or.
How ridiculous!
Because I watched it. I watched it about 2 or 3 months ago.
I get sick of talking about it. People ask me that all the time. Right.
So what happened? Do you not want to talk about it? We can trim it out.
I'm quite happy to talk about it.
I don't know what happened.
This is my side of it. You can take it for what it's worth.
Okay.
I'm not gonna. I don't need to, whether you believe me or not. I just come back off a 7-week suspension, right, from when I did the thing on the airplane, when I got thrown in jail in Alaska and all that, right? So I was on my best behavior.
Right.
Okay.
Who's running things at this time?
Eric.
Yeah. Okay.
I get there, and I am told by the agent, and Bill is there with the agent in charge, to go out and have a 6-minute match. Bill had never done anything more than a 90-second match. And the words were, and we both heard it, have a competitive match. Something different, right?
I thought it was a competitive match.
Right. So we go out and go through a few things. Let's get this right. We get out there, and if you watch it, and if you know what you're watching for, and that's what throws me off. I'm glad that people still think that I'm that good that I can make it look like I'm killing people, right, or taking liberties. Go out there, and Bill doesn't really. He freezes up. He doesn't know it. So I'm just working around him, and that's all.
You're doing your thing.
If I'm telling you, I'm trying to get him to do stuff, and I'm working around him. I'm trying to get him to do. People say I don't hit him any harder than I hit anybody else. in safe places.
You were snug. You laid your stuff in. You protected
in safe
the business.
Places.
Yeah, I know. I'm down with it.
There's no liberty it's just complete divvy talk when people go say any different. And so I'm trying to get him to, come on, do something.
Yeah.
Eventually, and that's all it is. It's me sort of getting him through stuff.
Right.
Till he finally gets it to, and we do whatever we got to do. I come out, and Eric comes up and starts screaming at me, and this is my exact words to him, look. And Billy stood there, and Bill said to me, it's all my fault. He said, I'm sorry, and he seems to forgot about that. From what I don't know if he read his book, I never read it. Somebody, people always come to you and want to tell you about it. Right. That's the only way I hear about things. Oh, such and such said something about you. Such and such said. Sometimes I couldn't care less. If you don't like me work, I don't care. It's like me liking different types of music. Subjective, right? I don't care. But if you start personal things, sometimes it gets to you a bit.
Sure.
So he said, I made him look... How bad does that sound when he said, I made him look foolish? This is a big monster, right? And he's trying to... you make yourself sound any more silly, right?
That doesn't sound good because no one should ever. Right. You can't let that happen as a pro.
So anyway, we come out, and my exact words were to Eric. I said, "Look, I can't hit myself." That was what I said. I said, "I can't hit myself." I said, "I'm trying my best to get him to do stuff to me, and he's not doing anything." And he stood there agreeing. Bill stood there agreeing. I look over at the agent who give us these. He was going, Who told you to go that long? And who told you? I look over at the agent who I'm waiting for him to say, I did.
Yeah.
And he just buries his head in the paper, in his papers. And I'm that kind of fella. That's just me. I probably saved me a lot of times if I wasn't that way. But that's the way I am. That I've got that. All I've got is my word to me, and that's the way I am.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna. If you're not gonna say it yourself, I'm not gonna say it. I'll take it on the chin like I take a lot of things on the chin. And I just waited for him to say something, didn't. And people think I got fired that day. I didn't. I got fired several months later. And I got fired because I was a mess. I was out of my mind on drugs, you know what I mean?
Right.
But that was that was months later when I left WCW.
Yeah.
That may have had something to do with it. I may have soured the thing, but I didn't get fired that day. Nowhere close to it.
Right.
It was like 4 or 5 months later, I think, that I left.
Anyway, I'm talking to Steve Regal. He's got a haul ass, and I do too. Catch you down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show. Please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends. For more Steve Austin Show, go to PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
Pluto TV is a place for movie fans, like me.
And TV fans, like me.
They've got something for everyone, and it's free.
I love free, and I love Jersey Shore.
For me, it's The Godfather.
SpongeBob SquarePants, I am Patrick. Patrick is me.
Oh, Forrest Gump, come on.
Criminal Minds, solving crime after bedtime.
Whatever you love to watch, Pluto TV makes it easy with thousands of free movies and shows.
Pluto TV, stream now, pay never.
Yeah.
What's good?
I'm Brian Greenberg.
I'm Victor Rasook.
Check out our new podcast, We Almost Made It.
You guys might remember us from HBO's How to Make It in America. And guess what? We're going to have actors, athletes, fashion designers, comedians, friends.
We're going to talk hustle, grind, anyone who had a dream and people thought they were crazy, but they chased it anyway. We want to talk about it. We also want to hear from you.
So go follow, rate, and review We Almost Made It at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast.
Go ahead and do it.
Do it.
Do it now.